everyone. I'm Josh Kalscheur, one of the practice directors here at the corporate office at Nordic. Thanks for joining us to talk a little bit about Go Live and Cutover. This is a great series that we're pretty excited about, giving you the opportunity to learn from some of our best about what is important to consider and keep in mind in regards to Go Live and Cutover, and certainly our opportunity also to learn from you. Let us know your thoughts on these series, and if there are additional things that we can share with you that would be more helpful. I'm joined here today with Andy Palmer, one of our longtime consultants, somebody that we love to bring in and just learn from your experience and your time in the field, and very interested in kind of hearing some more about your thoughts on the access portion specifically of Go Live and Cutover.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I'm Andy Palmer. I've been a consultant here at Nordic for several years now, primarily focused on the patient access applications like you mentioned, ADT, Cadence, Prelude. Myself have probably gone through over a dozen full-scale conversions and cutovers, and have a lot of experience working through just the massive planning and logistics and execution of those phases of the project.
So I guess as we dive in here, Andy, help me to understand getting into kind of those first initial stages of Go Live and Cutover preparation. What are some of the first things that come to mind to you that we need to make sure we're keeping in mind?
I think first and foremost, plan early. There's a lot of details and a lot of things that go into a conversion and a cutover, and I'm a big believer in that you can't start planning for these early enough. Even if it's setting up small things like doing dry runs of what you're going to be doing at the time of conversion or cutover, and getting some practice in place of all the different things that have to happen. It's good to have that repetition under your belt, so when the time comes for that conversion, you're not left scrambling if a detail was missed or anything, and you've had a chance to kind of work out those kinks along the way. Along those lines with planning, logistics can play a big part into it as well too. Every conversion and every cutover is going to be unique to every customer because you might have a different application mix, you might have a different point in the life cycle of your project where you're doing these conversions and these cutovers, and so all of those are going to add some different flavors to what you need to plan and account for. But when you look at some of the volumes of what you have to do in terms of converting tens of thousands of appointments or writing tens of thousands of orders or whatever the case may be, you're going to need people to do that or resources to do that, and you're going to need the space to do that. You're going to need to feed those people and things like that. So all of those things play into it and can take quite some time to plan. So if you don't have a lot of space for the people you have involved, that can add some tricky elements to the planning. And so getting in front of that, getting that figured out well in advance will go a long way towards having a successful conversion and a cutover.
I appreciate you talking a little bit about kind of the not only the preparation, but certainly the planning for the volumes and the staffing. And I wonder if you could give us just a few kind of general examples of what are some of those volumes that you've seen in your experience, whether we're talking about numbers of appointments that have been converted, or especially, which I think would be really helpful for folks as they're thinking about this, is how does that translate to the number of staff that you need to do this, or the number of hours, or kind of what that looks like? Yeah,
so really a lot of it kind of almost becomes a math problem in terms of how many appointments you might need to convert times how long it's going to take to convert each of those appointments, and how many people you're going to need to do that. In my most recent implementation, we converted about 60,000 appointments. We did it over one weekend, and when we actually kind of did the math, we figured out that we were going to need upwards of almost 300 people to do that, because we were doing an almost exclusively manual conversion for a variety of reasons. But when we did that, when we figured out how many appointments we needed to do, how long it was going to take us, it became pretty evident we didn't have the room to do it, so we were spread out over multiple locations. And doing a lot of the different things at the same time across multiple areas. So there were some tricky elements there, but it's pretty common to be in the tens of thousands of appointments depending on the size of the customer.
And help me to understand, as you're talking about that volume of appointments, how do you determine that number? Is that based upon you're looking at appointments 1, 2, 3 days out? Like, how do you define what that time frame is?
Typically what I've found successful is you work with some folks on your legacy IS system that can look out and see all of the appointments that are scheduled from a date into an infinity. What I like to do is I actually like to run those reports several months in advance to make sure that we have the process of running the report, looking at the report, knowing how we're going to pull that report, translate it into our conversion activities, make sure we have all of those things ironed out. So I like to do that well in advance. But usually what we do then is that we say, okay, I'm just going to take my appointment list starting tomorrow all the way into the future, basically simulating what it's going to be like the night before our conversion to say, we need all of my appointments into the future from our go live date, whatever that's going to be, a week, 2 weeks, whatever that time difference is going to be. But we basically run that same process multiple times throughout our planning stage and figure out, okay, we're going to have about 50,000 appointments that we're going to need to schedule, 20,000, 80,000, whatever the case may be. But by doing that, we're able to kind of gauge those numbers and help with that planning that becomes so critically important.
One thing that you mentioned about kind of getting everybody situated and the staffing and making sure that you're taking everything into consideration there, certainly making sure that they have the right amount of food. I would be interested in...
That's critical.
In your experience, what's your favorite food to have during appointment conversion?
Oh, that's a tough question. Anything that doesn't have red sauce. I always manage to find a way to get red sauce on my shirt. So, the pastas are out and things like that. But no, I found anything that you can cater to a large group. A lot of sandwiches are usually pretty good. Most people aren't too picky when it comes to being fed because you are typically asking them to come in on a weekend and do some extra work. So that can go a long way towards making that more enjoyable.
Yeah, you mentioned that a couple of times. I think it is a good point here. In your experience, oftentimes this is happening outside work hours, and in my experience as well, this is almost exclusively happening over weekend hours. Is that typically what you see?
Yeah, for appointment conversions, you typically want to have these when scheduling is not occurring. Most organizations won't have scheduling occurring over the weekend, or if they do, it'll be very, very small volume, because you don't want to be scheduling appointments as you're converting them, because you really have to have a cutoff point in time, because once you've converted those appointments into your new system as of your go live date, you have an interim process and an interim workflow that if a patient's going to be scheduled for after your go live date, it goes into your new system. If it's before that, it goes into your legacy system. So you don't want to have a lot of different moving parts in regards to appointments being scheduled while you're trying to convert all of these other appointments out there, because that opens up the opportunity for appointments getting missed or double booking appointments and things like that. So you want to try to avoid that as much as you can.
And I think that kind of alludes to the fact that this appointment conversion tends to be really kind of the forerunner of the go live itself, right? I mean, we're talking about this happening as one of the first major portions of go live, where it's kind of once you cross that line, you don't go back. I mean, that is once you've done your conversion, you are diving into go live headlong. And so how close to go live does the appointment conversion normally happen?
Usually, I think anywhere between 1 week and 3 weeks is pretty common. I think historically, a lot of conversions were happening in more that 3 to 4 week time period. But as folks have gotten better at this and kind of learned their lessons and gone through everything, we've actually pushed that a little bit closer to the actual go live date. Because then you don't have that interim workflow quite as long. Once you do your appointment conversion, your schedulers are going to be working in two systems. You're going to be in your new system and your legacy system, and depending on that date of the appointment is going to depend on where you're going to schedule that particular visit. So that kind of becomes a point too that you work in depending on your numbers and volumes and things like that. So I found personally that 10-day mark is probably a good mark to look for. Gives you enough time to deal with any issues that might arise that could arise at any go live, and it also gives you enough time to get people a little bit more well versed in the system. I will expand a little bit more on the comment you made too about how it kind of being a precursor to go live. I even kind of position it as it's go live. Your schedulers and everything are live. I like to kind of almost use the metaphor of a soft go live at a restaurant or something like that, where you might have a soft opening or a soft go live type of thing. But I mean, you're live on the system. I mean, your new system's up and running, and you're going with it. So really kind of expanding on that and pushing that and making it kind of a must attend event has gone a long way in my experience with planning these things and getting people involved and building that excitement. Really kind of stressing that, hey, schedulers, you're setting the tone for the upcoming go live that's coming up in a couple of weeks or whatever the case may be. So I would certainly look at doing that on any type of conversion or cutover activity.
I think that's a great point. And obviously you spend a lot of time yourself, Andy, in schedules and registration in that area. For you personally, do you prefer to schedule your appointments in the morning or the afternoon?
Personally, I like the morning. I'm a morning guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me.
Okay, that's fair. It's probably easier on the schedule as well, usually.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's good to know.